Okay, so when we open up our spreadsheet, we can see that we're faced with a few menus here. We can change the criteria bands. So for the autumn assessment, we can change our lower and upper criteria for the red category, the amber and the green. Same for the spring and summer. And if I change something in here, it will automatically change in all of the sheets. So what we do is we can click on each of these buttons. So year one, I'm going to look at first because it's the same as year two. So year one, this is going to put it all into categories for us. We can also look at the complete pupil list. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you the complete pupil list. And you can see that if I put a grade in, it colours it automatically. So if I change somebody's score from 2 to 15, it's going to change it to orange. And again backwards to red. And that kind of covers that little thing there. And if I'm going to go ahead and talk about adding later on in the video, but you can click on the Blackheath Phonics assessment data text at the top to go back to the switchboard. Now, the navigation in all of this, you should be using, you shouldn't be clicking on these down the bottom, because when you click on a button, it will run a bit of code that will update that sheet. So it is quite important that you click on these buttons and not the worksheets at the bottom. So if we go back into year one, instead of having to click in each of these to sort them all into groups, there's a refresh all list at the bottom that will look up the pupil list as mentioned before and put them all into groups so that we can run the assessment and compare the groups and look at the percentages of different categories of assessment, so green, amber, red. So just an important note for this refresh all lists is that when you click that button, you then have to wait. It will say that it's not responding, Excel itself, but it will take about 10 seconds, and then you'll get a little notification, a pop-up window that will say that it's complete. So if we go ahead and run that, and then you can see what happens. You can see my cursor's gone into a loading shape, but it is still running. So what's happening here is you can see all the females there being sorted, all the males into groups, and then we're going to look at, so that's the SEN, I believe, so non-SEN. And what this just allows us to do is, they'll all be in a worksheet at the bottom, so non-pupil premium here, pupil premium. Now obviously you don't need to go into each of these, it will do it for you. But from my perspective, what it allows me to do is then look up a specific sheet with this information that is just for that category. So if we just wait for that to finish running, there you go. And like I said, you will get a pop-up in a second when it's finished running. And it's going to ask you to save and reopen the spreadsheet. So yeah, all this has been updated. Please save and reopen the spreadsheet. If you run that refresh a couple of times, you will need to save and reopen the spreadsheet. But for this first time, it's fine. And then what I can do is go into the autumn assessment. Now again, it is important that you do click on this button instead of going down to the bottom, purely because it recalculates the whole sheet. So autumn assessment. So I can see that pupil premium, EAL, SEN, gender and term of birth are all there. Now this error that I'm getting here is because I haven't actually got the data for their term of birth. So it's trying to divide it by 0 because there are, if we look at the breakdown, 0 pupils. This breakdown is important because it allows us to just check that we're actually looking at the right number of pupils and that these percentages are correct and looking at the right amounts. So we can see that if I go to our year one pupil data, we have 56 pupils. We can see that at the bottom. So pupil 56. And if I go back to our assessment, autumn assessment, pupil premium, non-pupil premium, 23 add 33, 56. So we're on the right mark. We've got 56 pupils. And then let's start at the top. 52% of pupils in year one during the autumn assessment are in the green zone. 25% of pupils in year one during the autumn assessment, amber, 23 in red. Okay, so that's just a really quick overview of the autumn assessment. But then if we go a little bit more in depth, we can go 35% of pupil premium pupils are in the green zone, 26% of pupil premium are in the amber, 39% are in the red zone. And that's the same for all of those. It will be the same for term of birth as soon as the data gets in there. You can also click on each of these and it will generate a graph. So if I click on pupil premium, it then has a graph that you can see. So you can see that non-pupil premium in the green zone are a lot higher than pupil premium percentage wise. And that there are more pupil premium in red than there are non-pupil premium. And that's the same for EAL, SEN and gender. Autumn mean score, I've put this in purely because it gives us an average of what pupils are achieving. And it is important to note that I've put the range there because obviously the mean score adds them all up and divides it by how many there are. But the range gives us the least score and the highest score, which means that we can say that we've got some pupils achieving 39, which is well above the green zone. But we've also got people who bring down the mean average in terms of being in the red zone, so 0 to 10, I think it was. So just statistically, that's quite important for the comparisons in the next assessments. So we can see that the autumn mean score is 19.4. But what is the next assessment going to be? What's that mean score in comparison to the first? Are we improving or are we going backwards? So it's quite good to have that. To go back to the main menu, you just click on the logo. So Blackheath Primary School logo, click on that and it's going to take us back. So go back into year 1, complete pupil list, and this is where I can edit pupils' information. So if they have changed class maybe, then we can use the drop down, so reception 1T, 1JH, or we can manually type it in. What I'm going to do is add some spring data so we can see the comparison. So if I just do equals their previous assessment, add 1, so everybody's improved by 1 grade, and I just copy that up. That's also a good way to show you how the colour works actually. So what we're going to have to do is rerun our pupil list calculation on our menu so that it splits it all up into pupil premium now that each pupil has changed. So if I go back using the text at the top, so Blackheath Phonics assessment data, go back to year 1 and refresh all lists, and again we're going to have to wait for that to work. So it shouldn't take too long. Just going back to those assessment summaries, I have made it so that you can just press print and it will print everything out on one page quite nicely. So you don't have to worry about setting the print areas or anything like that. It's all set up to be on one page. So that's just a good and quick way of sort of summarising all the information, just having it on one piece of paper. And obviously because it's all automated as well, so we don't have to manually do the percentages or compare, that sort of thing. Okay, so that's just about done. So all lists have been updated, please save and reopen. So I'm not going to at the minute because I think we should be okay. So if I now go into the spring assessment, we can now see that we've got a few more percentages. So during the spring assessment, we now have 32% of pupils in year 1 in the green zone, 36% in amber and 32 in red. We've also got the breakdown, so just to check, so let's do EAL, non-EAL, 6 pupils, 50 pupils, 56, and we know that we've got 56 pupils in the list. Now, what we wanted to do is compare our spring assessment to the autumn assessment. So what this does is it looks at the current assessment. So 26% of pupils in the spring assessment in year 1 are in the green zone, 30% in amber, 43% in red. And the next percentage compares the autumn assessment percentage of pupil premium to the current spring assessment. So we can see that minus 8.7%. Now that means that our percentage of pupils in the green zone has gone down by 8.7%. And the amber and red categories have increased by 4.3%. And what we want to see is an increase in green or amber and a decrease in red for it to be a steady progress. But because I've done it just by adding 1, it's obviously going to show not true data. So let's have a look at non-pupil premium. So 36% of pupils are in the green zone, 39% in amber and 24% in red. We've got a 12% increase in people in the red zone from the previous assessment. We've got a 15% increase of people in the amber zone from the last assessment. And 27% of people have kind of moved out of the green zone into these two sections, amber and red. So we've lost 27% of people in the year 1 spring assessment, non-pupil premium, out of the green zone. And just going over here now, the EAL, SEN, gender, that's all the same as the pupil premium that I've just gone through. Now, as I was saying before, the mean score, we're now looking at a 20.4 autumn mean score. So our average has gone up, and we can compare that to our previous assessment, which is right next to it, it's 19.4. So everybody is now working at, well, not everybody, but the mean average for the year is 20.4, which is good. The range again ranges from 1 to 40, and we can check that if we go into our pupil data, that we go from 1 as our lowest to 40 as our highest. I just think it gives it good comparisons with the different assessments that we can look at. So we can see that 0 to 39 was our previous range. So that really is the spring assessment, and it's exactly the same for the other assessment as well. So if we're going to here, the summer assessment. Now what I do want to show you actually while I'm on here is, because I went down here and clicked on there, it's not necessarily calculated at all. And that's why it's essential for you to click on the buttons. The hashtag does mean that you can't see it properly. So what you do is at the top, you just increase the width of the column by clicking and dragging. So if you ever see hashtags on percentages, if I go ahead and go into this one, you can see this hashtags here because it can't quite fit in the divide by 0 error. But if I do the example here, so I'm going to click and drag E, and you can see it turns to hashtags because the column isn't wide enough to fit all the text in. So we just make that a little bit bigger. So if ever you do see that, that's the reason why. It's exactly the same for year 2, exactly the same setup. To go back to the main menu, click on the logo. The next thing that I'm going to show you is the search for class. You get a little pop-up, so it says enter the class you wish to find. So I'm going to type 1JH, and that's going to look up the complete pupil list, and it's going to look for everybody in that class, but it's also then going to split it all up for each pupil into the category of SEN, non-SEN, pupil premium, non-pupil premium, etc. So again, that is going to run for a little while, and we can see that it's looking for all the pupils in 1JH. So that was the girls, this is the boys, this is the SEN. So it's just going to run through all of that code. And it is important again to remember not to click your mouse really, because it might make it crash. So you just sort of leave it running while it is. And this works for the year 1 and year 2s as well. And 3s. And then again we should get a pop-up. Okay, there we go. And this is the Phonics Autumn Assessment 1JH overview. So we can see that 46% of 1JH are in the green zone, 25% in the amber, 29 in the red. And again, it's the same breakdown for each of these. We can look at the breakdown. So we've got 28 pupils in total for the class. So if I go into the pupil list, 1JH, we've got 28 pupils there. That's a good way of checking. Again, the autumn mean score is there. So we've got a mean score of 17.4 for the class in comparison to a 20.4 year average. So the whole of year one instead of the class. And again, the range there. So we can see what the range is in the class. So it's quite diverse, 0 to 39. And then again, we can click on the Blackheath logo to go back. We can change the criteria bands there. Search for the class we've gone over. Year 2 and year 1 are the same. We've been through quite a lot the year 1. To look at a specific list, we can just click on any of these. So if I wanted to look at the non-EAL pupils, I can click on that. And it's going to look up all the non-EAL pupils. And there you go, you can see EAL is just full of no's. So we can see all of their data there. I think that just about covers everything. So as you can see, it's really simple to use. So if I was from a teacher perspective or somebody who's going to use this, what I'll be interested in is clicking year 1, clicking the complete pupil list, add in somebody at the bottom, for instance, so pupil 57, class 1T, male, say no, and then I got 12 and 18. And then all you need to do is scroll back to the top, click on Blackheath, year 1, and then just refresh all lists, and then that will add the pupil 57 to all of these categories, and then we can go back into the assessment and it will update everything in the assessment. So that covers everything. Thank you.